Hey, thanks for stopping by. Welcome to Will Cook Music Reviews. I'm Will Cook, and today I am sharing my thoughts on the latest album from Blue October. This is What I Live For. This alt-rock band out of Houston, Texas came into my life and the lives of many others back in 2006 with the song that has gone down as their most successful single, and that song is, of course, Hate Me. As an angsty teenager at the time, I feel like I was right in the target market. It came into my life just as I was beginning to dive into the whole emo pop rock scene. And some of the biggest albums of my life came out in 2006. Albums from AFI, Billy Talent, Hello Goodbye, Incubus, The Killers, Marianas Trench, My Chemical Romance, The Red Jumpsuit Apparatus, Switchfoot, Taking Back Sunday, 3 Days Grace, and Yellowcard. And while those are some of my favorite albums of all time, I would say Blue October's Foiled beats all of them. Blue October wasn't quite like those other bands. While the albums I mentioned aren't to be taken lightly in the slightest, the weight delivered with Foiled was something else. It shined a light on mental health more prominently than anything I'd ever heard, and nearly 15 years later, it's the one that's left the biggest mark on me. Over the next few years, I began to look into their older albums, and despite how much I loved Foiled, I was not expecting the greatness I found with History for Sale and Consent to Treatment. Frontman Justin Furstenfeld lays it all out in his songs, and he gave listeners a look into his struggles with depression and addiction. Songs like HRSA, Schizophrenia, Holler, A Quiet Mind, Chameleon Boy, Ugly Side, they were the most honest confessions of someone's struggles I'd ever heard, and they remain some of the most healing music for me to this day. And it wasn't all about basking in the sadness. Calling You goes down as one of the greatest love songs of all time. And on the other side of that coin, Breakfast After 10 gave me one of the most powerful listening experiences of my life, and it helped me move on after my first breakup. I don't know if a song has ever spoken to me more than that song at that time in my life. Post-Foiled, Blue October began with 2009's Approaching Normal. Justin had a baby daughter with his first wife, and with the whole Approaching Normal title, I was a bit scared they would lose some of that original dark appeal. It was so easy to get lost in the self-torment of their earlier stuff, and this album had Justin writing songs that weren't just focused on himself anymore. So there was some happier stuff with songs like Jump Rope, Blue Skies, and Blue Does that I wasn't used to hearing from these guys, but it still managed to be a wonderful album. Especially with the explicit and somewhat controversial bonus track, The End, which has Justin painting the scene of himself breaking in on his ex while she's in bed with another man, murdering them both, and then turning the gun on himself. I've never heard anything quite like it. It was 2011's Any Man in America, though, that absolutely cemented Blue October as one of the top 5 bands in my life. The album was written in the midst of Justin's divorce and custody battles, and what came out of it was some of the most driven and passionate music Justin has ever written. Easily one of my favorites, if not my favorite album of the past 10 years. By 2013's Sway, things were looking a bit more hopeful in Justin's life. He was with a new partner, the one he's still with now, and they had a new baby girl. He also checked into rehab, and he was sober by the album's release, so you could very much feel the personal growth in the music, and I was happy for Justin, but it was still hard to get used to anything positive from Blue October. He may have been doing better, but my 22-year-old self certainly wasn't, and there was a few on this album I just didn't connect with. That being said, songs like the title track, Angels and Everything, Bleed Out, and Light You Up are absolutely fantastic. Then we get to 2016's Home, and this is where the real disappointment slapped me in the face. I was so let down by this album. Justin was happier than ever. The album came out weeks after the birth of his third child, and there was just so much love to be shared, I couldn't get behind it. And it sounds like I'm just looking for these angry, depressed songs, and that's not exactly the case, but I guess I just almost couldn't stand for this band that I fell in love with over such emotionally heavy material to make anything that wasn't in that same vein. And again, there's still some nice melodies to be found with songs like the title track and Coal Makes Diamonds, but it's an album I just don't ever go back to. By 2018's I Hope You're Happy, I think I found myself in a better spot in life, and I was able to accept that these guys weren't going to push out the same depressing album time and time again. I was able to embrace the songs, and even though it definitely wasn't all to my liking, it still left me feeling pretty hopeful for what the band could achieve, and I'd say the closer Further Dive is one of the best and most tragic songs that Justin has ever written, so I knew he still had it in him. And finally, we arrive at their 10th studio album with This Is What I Live For. Now, I know I'll never get an album from Blue October that I'll love more than their early work. The nostalgic power of that stuff just can't be beat, but I am gonna go ahead and say that this is their best album since Any Man in America. While the last two albums really pushed the whole positive approach, this album embraces the depression that Justin has lived with his whole life. It acknowledges the power depression can have in allowing you to find what truly drives you to find that happiness. The album doesn't bury the darkness in happy rock songs, it uses the darkness to fuel the fight for something better. Justin's been all smiles on his social media these days, so I was really caught off guard with the first 3 songs of the album. The opener, I Laugh at Myself, has him tapping into feelings from his custody battle days of anger, self-doubt, and shame. It just sets up this very dark mood with the backing strings and the dismal piano keys. There's a decently powerful swell to the song as it leads to him admitting temptations to drink again, and it's the first mention of any doubt in his sobriety that I remember. And the following, The Way I Used to Love You, dives head on into the depression subject, and it romanticizes it in a way. Justin does a track-by-track commentary for the album, and he legit listens through the entirety of every song while sharing the background on them. It adds another layer to the music to hear about the songs in his words, and it definitely helped increase my appreciation for this one. It's a bit of an experimental side compared to what we're used to from Blue October, a really brooding atmospheric sound with prominence on the bass guitar and an almost kind of auto-tuned sound from Justin. It reaches its peak in the bridge as the orchestral strings push to the front of the mix, and he sings about how I used to love you, acknowledging the sick kind of love affair one has with depression, where parts of it you actually kind of love in a way. And then we get Love's Stupid, which takes on a bit of a grungy sound with this really heavy-handed chorus, some dirty guitar, you even get a gnarly solo from guitarist Will Knack near the end. It's overall, though, another slow-paced and rather negative song, making that 3 in a row to kick off the album. Justin's vocals are paired with Karen Hover of the band Sound A Series to help lighten the delivery. So my thoughts after 3 songs into the album: I really appreciate the emotionally burdened intro, but I do find it an interesting choice to follow that with 2 more slow-moving songs that really weigh you down with that dark mood right off the bat. But then we get the title track, This Is What I Live For, and this is what I am truly looking for from a Blue October song. Justin said the song embodies what it feels like when he's living with depression, but he gets bits of hope and joy. It does an amazing job of carrying the weight of depression while pushing through it with the conviction of knowing what you're doing this for, why you pick yourself back up because of those bits of hope and joy that you know are worth fighting for. And the chorus just hits with this epic intensity, unlike pretty much anything I've ever heard from the band. Fight for Love has a bit more of a familiar sound, and it's just a slight step above This Is What I Live For. Another massively driven hook, but with some flashy keys that really brighten the sound, and a really hectic drum beat that I absolutely love. It's in the vein of favorites of mine from the past like Bleed Out and For the Love. Bleed Out on more of a musical level and For the Love on more of a lyrical level. It is a wickedly inspiring song that should encourage anyone to pursue what they love, and it's so uplifting and breathtaking in a way that it can bring me close to tears. And the subtle addition of vocals from Justin's firstborn daughter, Blue Reed, is also quite special. Oh My My was the lead single, and this one doesn't take much to get stuck in your head. It has such a sticky hook that I was afraid it would go stale fast, but it's such a pleasure, and Justin has a real way of keeping me engaged with the cheesiest of melodies. The song evokes young love, and it is the most let loose, feel-good song of the album. In the commentary, Justin calls Moving On So Long his favorite of the album, and I feel this one just growing on me with every listen. It's got a bit of a country flavor to it with this real easy rhythm led by acoustic guitar. It moves at this walking pace, and the chorus is such an encouragement to just let go of the problems of the past. And I originally found it to be a little too easy for a Blue October song, but with repeated listens, it has just proven to be massively heartwarming. They continue with a bit of a country feeling on I Will Follow You, the first song written for the album from several years ago actually. It's a love song, and again, super easy, but with enough melody to hold on to. I love the chicka chicka in the hook. It's something I've never heard from these guys. And it's got a really strong bridge to it as well with the whole "you ain't welcome if you don't live around here." They recorded the album at Justin's own Up-Down Studios in Texas, and the head engineer there, Eric Holtz, looks like a young guy, played a big role in some of these songs. He actually rewrote the music for I Will Follow You to make it what it is on the album, and he came up with the foundations for Completely as well. It pairs nicely with I Will Follow You as it's another super pleasant love song, but this time void of any country feeling, and instead based around a mellotron and gentle keys, making for a very smooth, clean mix to the song. A really well-made song, but if the whole album followed this kind of note, I would not be too impressed. The next song, though, with Stay With Me is definitely not like that, as we get something that really stands apart from the rest of the album with its spoken word approach. It was originally intended to be another love song, but midway through the album process, they found out that Justin's dad's cancer came back, and so the song ended up taking on a different form. The starting notes kind of remind me of Congratulations off of their Foiled album, and it sets up this gentle but dark kind of tension as it moves you into the story. It's over 6 minutes, and there's a lot of little touches that add bits of personality to it. The blossoming chorus gives off some real strength, though it doesn't quite rip into me. Justin dedicated the bridge to his father. He says, "In the words of my father, yes, I'm good enough." And it's honestly a very impressive final stretch to the song that lands a bit harder when you take the "Stay With Me" refrain and see it as being directed towards his father with cancer. The band's longtime bassist Matt Noveski wrote the chorus for The Weatherman, which he showed to Justin one day, and then they ended up finishing the song within a few hours. Again, we get a bit of a love song, but this one takes a personal dive into some of the struggles within what I can only assume is Matt's marriage, but it's hopeful that the storm will clear, like the Weatherman said. It's a wonderfully pretty song. The drums sound amazing. You get this wicked mandolin work from the band's violinist Ryan Delahousie. The only thing is, kind of like how I feel about Completely, these more lovey-dovey, gentle songs just don't really land with me as much. We get one of Justin's best performances on the penultimate track, Who Do You Run From? Justin plays the acoustic guitar while singing the song, and it was all done in one take. It's a true showing of the man's incredible talent. He has an amazingly strong voice, and it really stands at the front of this song with little else to get in the way. They came up with this extended outro that switches the key of the song and takes on this kind of haunting presence that eventually transitions right into the closer, Only Lost Is Found. Now, Justin already said that Moving On was his favorite, but he must have forgotten by this point in the commentary because he says this one is his favorite as well. He says of writing the lyrics that it was almost like God was speaking to him and guiding the words. And there is a bit of a hymnal quality to the song with Justin's weighty vocals, and he even says he found the light of God. You don't usually get overt religious context from these guys, but it definitely feels right on this song. The song, like a lot of this album, deals with depression in a much healthier way than Justin dealt with it in the older albums. He says in the album's commentary that it was very special to him because he was able to express his depression in a way that he was never able to before. It's a part of his life and he welcomes it and lives with it, and I can't sum it up any better than he does. He says this album shows how colorful that darkness can be, and I couldn't agree more. Blue October became one of my all-time favorite bands in high school, and they could put out an album of pure gold today, and I'm sure it still wouldn't speak to me the way their older stuff did. But after 2 albums of much more happy music, this album figured out how to embrace that darker side of things while providing some of the most uplifting, encouraging, and inspirational messages of their career. And I can't say enough good about the commentary version of this album. You get to listen to the entire thing with Justin commenting on it throughout, and it's an amazing way to connect with the artist and the music on a much deeper level. So thank you, Justin, thank you, Blue October, and thank you for stopping by. Hit the subscribe, stick around for the ride, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and I will see you with the next one.